Chapter 31. The Feral Camp. Jack was draped over a burly shoulder. He hung there, too weak to struggle, watching snowflakes shrink into the open flame of a torch. Just beyond the flame, Jack could see Harding's bloodied face. His eyes were closed. He might have been dead. His arms swung limply across the back of the coyote carrying him. The trees seemed to be thickening, the darkness around them more dense. Ahead, a faint glow bloomed over the crest of a hill. It flickered softly and irregularly, and as they drew nearer, the light seemed to expand. There were voices, crowds of them, talking, laughing, even singing. There was also a steady drumming, up-tempo, with some sort of stringed instrument rattling along with it. As they passed over the peak of the hill, Jack saw that the light was contained under a wide canopy that stretched between the trees. The top of this makeshift cave was covered in snow, blending with the surrounding hills. This made it impossible to guess at its size, but even before they passed beneath it, Jack counted at least 6 separate campfires inside. They lit upon a lively group of musicians and dancers, an old woman telling stories to a group of wide-eyed children, a circle of men laughing and swigging from mugs. They were greeted at the entrance by a coyote so big he might have been a bear. As he drew nearer, Jack could see the white of his muzzle and the aged sag in his lower lids.
"Sasha,"
he said in a deep voice,
"what have you brought us, my son?"
He looked Harding up and down.
"What have you done to this one? My goodness, Sasha, with so many of you against one."
"That wasn't us," said the coyote carrying Jack. "We pulled him out of a hothead pit along with this one."
He stood Jack up on the dirt floor in the mouth of the tent cave. The elder coyote eyed him.
You were in the worm pit too?"
Jack gave a weak nod. The coyote laughed, plucking at the torn sleeve of Jack's coat.
"Well, they seem to have liked your jacket more than you."
He swept an arm invitingly, and they followed him inside. More and more campfires became visible as they moved deeper into the tent cave. The canopy was of white plastic and used the thick trunks of living trees as architectural support beams. Jack supposed that from above, these trees would add to the camp's disguise. Below the surface, though, they looked more like works of art. They were carved and decorated, their bark chipped away into ornate patterns of fish, snowflakes, and rushing rivers.
"What is this?" asked a voice from ahead of them. "More of them?"
"Survivors," Sasha said,
"of an anazopter crash. The rabbit, I'm not sure about, but this one,"
he indicated Harding, who still appeared to be unconscious,
"is familiar. He lives in the mountains like us." "Certainly not like us,"
the newcomer said, drawing near. He had a long, bent snout and sunken eyes that gave him a menacing look, despite being much smaller than most of the others.
"He looks next to death. You say an anazopter crash? What happened?" "That army we've been watching, one of their hogs shot it out of the sky. I suspect they're getting ready to make their move." "That's no concern of ours," the hook-nosed coyote said. "Let them have their war." "It is your concern."
Jack turned in surprise. Harding, who was still draped over the largest coyote's shoulder, had rolled his head to face them.
"What did you say?"
the hook-nosed coyote asked. Harding tried to speak, took a few steadying breaths, then tried again.
"I said it is your concern. The fort has fallen. Claythorne is dead."
There was a murmur from the surrounding coyotes. Even Sasha looked at Harding with sudden alarm. The hook-nosed coyote collected himself quickly and took a step closer to Harding.
"Are you sure?"
"We weren't shot down by a hog," Harding said. "We weren't even near the gate. We were shot down by 2 safe haven anazopters." Sasha's father, the bear-like coyote who had greeted them at the entrance, looked frantically between Harding and the hook-nosed coyote.
"Ramses," he said. "Ramses is still in there. We have to go get him."
Calm yourself, Armel.
We will decide what is best, the hook-nosed coyote said. I will decide. The surrounding ferals began to part, and an elderly coyote woman stepped into their midst. She wasn't much taller than Jack, and wore garments of so many colors she looked bizarrely mismatched. A deep green top wrapped in a blood-red shawl, a purple skirt stitched with golden lace. Her eyes were tired, sad even, and fixed on Jack.
You have finally arrived, Jack Roberts. I am Magdalyanovsky. The hint of a smile touched her eyes at the surprised look on his face.
I know much and see much, she said, but the universe did not tell me your name. We have a mutual friend. Jack watched her silently. She said nothing for a moment, but walked in a slow circle around him, looking him up and down. She reached forward, snatched up the messenger bag resting against his hip. He didn't make a move. She seemed to weigh the bag in her paws, like a child guessing the contents of a gift, then released it. She moved to Harding. He watched her through slits. There is much to be done, she said. This is only the beginning of the journey, for both of you, and I'm afraid the darkest times are yet to come. As she said this, she turned her eyes to the floor at Jack's feet. Her expression was somber, holding none of the jubilance or music of her tribe. When her eyes met Jack's once more, he saw a hollowness there, as though she wasn't looking at him at all, but straight through him. She drew closer, speaking into his ear. Jack Roberts, she whispered, you don't know who you are. Jack was shown to a small, curtained room. I guessed these were your size, Sasha said, placing a bundle of clothes in his arms, then allowing the curtain to drop, leaving Jack in privacy. The clothes were a little big and mismatched in that same quilt-like way. A hooded maroon sweater with ash-gray sleeves, and blue jeans covered in purple and yellow patches. Still, it felt wonderful to slip into clean, dry clothes. They moved deeper into the camp, Magdalia at the front of the procession. Every eye turned to watch as they passed. Colorful quilts formed a curtain between two carved trunks. Magdalia grabbed the opening between them, but before she could pull it back, Sasha spoke up. We can't leave him here. We need to question him. We will question the lion, Magdalia responded. The lion? Sasha protested. He's half dead. My brother is in the fort. We need answers now. And we will get them, Magdalia said, her tone gentle. The lion's wounds aren't as deep as the rabbit's, nor are they as easily remedied. She turned to Jack. That is why I've brought you here, Jack. Your wounds are invisible. To mend them requires something I cannot give you. She pulled back the curtain, revealing a small, oddly shaped room with quilt walls. A campfire emitted a dim red light, its smoke rising to the canopy and escaping through the gaps along the tree trunks. And staring back at him were 5 surprised faces. You will stay here tonight, Magdalia said. When the lion is recovered, I will want to speak to you both. Jack nodded, although he'd barely heard her words. She walked away, the others following, and Jack was left speechless, staring into the room. You look a lot less dead than we thought you were, Sprint said, a broad smile stretched across his face.